Hello everyone, and welcome to my spoiler-free review of Starfield. I wasn't originally planning on making a review of this game, but there are so many different elements I've been chomping at the bit to talk about that I figured this would be the best format to do so. As mentioned, this is going to be spoiler-free, meaning I won't be revealing any story details for any of the quests, and I also won't be showing any footage outside of pretty early game stuff, or just some generic locations. In the description below, you'll be able to find timestamps, so you can skip over anything you don't want to hear about, or skip to something you're particularly curious towards. Now, on to the video proper, and the very first thing I want to talk about is the skill system. I'm a character build maker at heart. It's one of the big things this channel is known for, and I just have to say, I am so impressed with the progress Bethesda has made when it comes to skill trees. Seriously, this knocks all their previous ones out of the park. So in the past, Bethesda skill trees have always been fine, but never great. They've always worked well enough, and occasionally there's one or two standout features in them, but overall they've not been much to write home about. With Starfield, I think that's all changed. They have kept with fairly straightforward elements for the most part, with things like having to invest in early skills to unlock more powerful ones and getting one skill point per level. Where they've stepped things up is by actually balancing the skills a bit more, so that player freedom when leveling is actually a thing. In previous Bethesda games, you'd always end up sticking to one, maybe two types of weapons, and just max out the damage perks in that regard in order to get double damage with them. Now though, damage perks don't go up to a 100% increase, and they're a bit more varied. Sure, if you want to play a pistol-based character, then pistol certification makes sense. But if you just fancy using ballistic weapons in general and want to vary the type, you can get the ballistics perk instead. And if you want to focus super heavy on damage with one super specific type, say laser rifles, then you get the combination deal, maxing out both rifle certification and the laser skill. But if you want to play less of a combat-centric character, you're not penalised with half damage by not investing in the damage perks. Sure, you'll still be dealing less damage than the person who went heavy into those skills, but that makes sense. There's a thin line to tread when it comes to damage-based perks, and I think the devs have done a great job here. Maybe I'll change my mind once broken builds start getting worked out, but for now, they've managed to make a game where everyone doesn't feel hugely pressured to max out on damage and miss out on the fun perks. And when it comes to fun perks, there's quite a few to choose from. Boost pack training and gymnastics provide advanced mobility options, which is something I absolutely love. And while I was at first a bit annoyed these weren't included as default, I think having them be locked behind skills does help to differentiate characters more. If space is more your thing, then there's plenty of skills here to improve that experience. From ones that let you pilot better ships, to ones that increase your crew capabilities, there's a bunch. One place where I do have to deduct points a little though, is with crafting perks. While some have fun little side benefits, stuff like weapon engineering simply just unlocks the next level of mods, which while helpful, isn't anything too exciting. Overall though, the skill system is great, and I'm really looking forward to getting into the higher level skills over time. On to another improvement that I absolutely love, the Digipick system. This is so much better than lockpicking or hacking ever were. Every time you want to pick a lock or hack a computer, you have a little visual puzzle to solve. The higher level the lock, the harder the puzzle is. Slotting the picks all into place can be done with luck, or just trying again and again, but by counting out the gaps in the rings, working out which pins will fit in where, and how it's all going to connect together, you can use your own brain in order to succeed every time. This is such a better system than the old lockpicking, where you could get really close, but the pick would just keep breaking over and over again because you were a few pixels out. And I even think it's better than Fallout's hacking word puzzles, as it's just a much clearer and neater system. All good things here, so let's move on. And with two good things covered, it's about time to touch on a negative, and that's going to be with uniques and the Rarity system. This is something which I pretty much knew was going to be a bit of an issue for me going into the game, but I had some hopes. Those hopes haven't come true yet. So in Starfield you can come across weapons and armour which are rare, epic or legendary, and it really just means you get 1, 2 or 3 random added effects on those bits of equipment. They'll drop randomly, so there's always a chance of getting better gear. The problem for me is that I love unique equipment. I want weapons and armour that stand out, which tell a story, that provide something different to the generic loot you're getting everywhere else, and Starfield doesn't really seem to have much of that. While I have come across a few pseudo-unique items, they've all just been basic items with extra effects and maybe a slightly different paint job. They're basically just guaranteed versions of a random drop you could get by chance. And to make matters worse, I often don't know whether or not I found something unique because there's no unique tag. There was one point where I thought I'd found a unique weapon, but I found out a few hours later that it was just a rare effect version of a base tier weapon I'd yet to come across. With no unique tag and uniques not really standing out in any other way, you're left just rummaging through loot to see which numbers are biggest, and what effects for all of the dice decided to create. I know this won't be an issue with a lot of people, but for me it's the biggest letdown with Starfield. I was hoping for weapons that could hold a special place in my heart, like the Deliverer from Fallout 4 or the Wabberjack from Skyrim. Instead, I'm left trying to connect to a Berserker's Lawbringer or Elemental Maelstrom, things that I just found out and about, rather than anything with personality to them. It is worth acknowledging that this is a big game, and there still is a chance there's some truly unique items out there, but so far, things aren't looking good. The added kick in the teeth to not getting uniques with real personality and story behind them is that the game is really well written. Obviously, I won't go into any specifics here, but throughout my time playing, I've had characters say things that have made me smile, made me laugh, made me feel sad. It feels like the writing has been given real focus, especially in regard to quests and companions. While I know there are plenty of better written games out there, for a huge open world sandbox style of game, I'm just impressed at how consistently good the writing has been. And another point that surprised me was the sound design. I'm not talking about the OST here, that's fine in my books, and considering how harsh a judge I am of OSTs, it's probably actually quite good. What I'm talking about though is overall sound quality, effects, stuff like that. First off, all the audio has been recorded really well, and little details like characters wearing helmets being slightly muffled when they talk work great. The standout sound moment for me though was the wind blowing. I had my headset on, was wandering around a planet, and kept taking my headset off because I thought the wind had picked up outside. The noise was so perfectly realistic that I thought it was happening in the real world. And not just one time, oh no, I kept taking my headset off because it tricked me over and over again, even when I knew better. It was just that realistic. Props to every single person who worked on sound design in any capacity for this game, because you all absolutely knocked it out of the park. Although, there has been one issue in that rough area of things. Sometimes when you talk to somebody, they won't have their lips move with the words they are saying. Characters being out of sync with their own audio is probably the most persistent and noticeable bug I've come across, and while not game-breaking, it is immersion shattering. Overall, I'd say this is the theme with bugs so far. I've not come across any which have ruined the experience for me, but things would go smoother without them. Considering this is right after launch though, and we've not needed a day one patch or anything like that, I'm pleasantly surprised overall with the quality of things. For such a huge game, there's plenty of potential for stuff to go wrong, but by and large, it all seems to be working. You should expect some bugs while playing, but chances are they won't ruin the experience for you. I want to hit on a bunch of minor points quickly, which I don't necessarily have much to say about, but I do want to briefly mention. First is the spacesuits tend to look fairly samey. It's mostly a case of them always being roughly the same shape, but even in terms of colours, they're mostly shades of grey or white and very muted otherwise. Makes sense that you're not going to have a ridiculous amount of variety in suit design, as the basic function remains, but considering you're penalised for not wearing them, it does mean your character outfit isn't going to be all that pretty most of the time, which is a shame because the lighting in the game is beautiful, and there's been a great job done with making it so that shadows and dark areas work and get you to use your torch, but you can still have bright lights show up to highlight things or provide a more pleasant atmosphere with some more balanced lighting. And the game in general is very pretty. It really is a beauty, and it's a real shame for me that I have to turn down the graphics whenever I want to record in order to avoid too much lag. When I'm not recording, I'm playing on high graphic settings, and everything looks so good. Fortunately, there is a photo mode to take pictures of the beauty of the game, and it's a real solid one. Includes almost everything you could want, although it does bug me a little that there's seemingly no facial expression slider, as that was a thing in 76 and worked really well. In Starfield, if I take a photo of my character, they've always got this same kind of bland, near emotionless expression covering their face. There is a good bit of variety with how weapons look and feel though. I'm still trying them all out, so my opinion may change over time, but right now, the variety is good. In terms of location variety, it's pretty good. Planets do really feel significantly different to one another, however the procedurally generated random location system can be a little hit or miss. I have already come across the same abandoned research facility on 2 different planets, which didn't really make sense and just felt like deja vu, but it was just a generic location to loot and kill spaces, so not the end of the world. Does also appear there's no dogs in the game though, so 0 out of 10. Alrighty, quick fire round over, let's cover the last few points in detail before moving on to the summary. Spaceships are incredible, and I see so much potential with the shipbuilding system. I've only really dipped my toe into it so far, but already I'm having a lot of fun seeing what different styles of ship you can create. I can see myself easily sinking hundreds of hours just into the space element of things, flying through the stars, upgrading ship parts, having dogfights, transporting cargo, or just seeing if I can build a single ship which serves as a permanent full home for me and all my followers to live in. There's a lot of variety when it comes to the spaceships, and in just my first playthrough, where I honestly didn't do any proper shipbuilding, I ended up with a trio of ships. One small and good at nipping about, another more of a combat machine that could win against multiple foes, and another which was a huge cargo hauler, bereft of weapons but able to transport thousands of weight in cargo from one end of the galaxy to the other in just a single grav jump. I'm certain there will be plenty of players who mostly ignore the ground-based side of this game and focus far more on being up in the stars, and I absolutely love that the game can facilitate that. I'd say the biggest potential bad point that could be said about the whole spaceship system is that it can be very tricky to wrap your head around at first, requiring multiple hours of testing and fiddling with things to really get to grips with. And this is a complaint that I've seen with several systems in the game. I had a chat with a friend the other day and they told me how much of a headache it had been to build up an outpost in order to complete a mission they had. They were constantly going back and forth in order to get the right materials, had to come up with workarounds to get the extractors up and running, and overall just seemed to find it more frustrating than rewarding. But I've also seen people talk about how much they love the outpost system and the huge rewards they've gained from delving into it. For me personally, I spent about half an hour in total working on a single outpost and then kind of just forgot about it. It wasn't that it was too tricky to manage, it just wasn't immediately easy, and I had better things to be getting on with. Fortunately, it's not a requirement to build up outposts, apart from for a few side quests here and there, so I didn't feel like I was going to be stopped from enjoying the game due to this. But I do think it's something worth considering and talking about. There's a lot of different stuff going on in this game. While you can play almost however you want and can avoid the stuff that doesn't appeal to you, if you want to experience everything that Starfield has to offer, then it's likely going to require putting in several hours of work, figuring out how different mechanics work out, and getting acclimated with the different systems. Whether this added depth is a positive or a negative really comes down to you as an individual. On to my closing thoughts now, and I don't think it should be a huge surprise to hear that I'm a big fan of this game. While there certainly are some issues I have with it, they're nothing major, and most aren't ruining my enjoyment of the game, so much as they are just areas which could be improved. But no game is perfect, so I can say I'm honestly impressed with how good Starfield is. The first Bethesda game I played from launch was Fallout 76, so I was really expecting things to start off a little worse, and need time to get good. But the game works. It's good, and it's fun to play. I can easily recommend this game to anyone who can play it, as I feel that the vast majority of gamers out there will have a lot of fun just with the whole experience. Chances are you've already made up your own mind from what you've seen and heard, but for those who want a number score with their reviews, I think I'm gonna have to go for a 9 out of 10. Throw in some actual uniques and smooth out the few rough edges here and there, and this would be a 10 out of 10 game. As it is, there's not all that much to complain about, and a hell of a lot to praise. I'm really happy the game has turned out as good as it has, because it means I get to make videos on it for years to come, and do so with a smile on my face. Well, there you have it, my review of Starfield. I hope you all enjoyed this. Please leave a like if you did, subscribe for more Starfield content, and share this video with anyone looking to learn more about the game. As always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.